The alarm clock buzzed loudly at 5:30 in the morning, filling the small apartment with its harsh sound. Tom rubbed his tired eyes and sat up slowly on the old couch that served as his bed. His back ached from the uncomfortable springs, but he had given the only bedroom to his daughter Lucy. Every morning started the same way for the past 2 years, ever since his wife Maria had died in a car accident. Tom looked toward Lucy's bedroom door, which was still closed. She would sleep for another hour before getting ready for school. He moved quietly through their tiny kitchen, making coffee with the last bit of grounds in the container. The refrigerator hummed loudly, and he made a mental note to ask his landlord about fixing it again. Their apartment was small but clean. Tom made sure of that. The walls were bare except for a few of Lucy's drawings and one photo of Maria holding baby Lucy at the hospital. The furniture was old and mismatched, mostly items given to them by kind neighbors when they had to move from their previous home after Maria's death. Tom worked at Danny's Diner, a local restaurant on the edge of town. It was not fancy, but the food was good and the customers were mostly working people like himself. He had been there for 3 years, starting as a dishwasher and working his way up to server. The pay was not much, but with tips, he could usually cover rent and basic needs for him and Lucy. After his coffee, Tom showered quickly and got dressed in his work uniform. The shirt was getting thin from too many washes, and he had sewn a small patch on the elbow where it had torn. He left a note for Lucy with instructions for getting ready for school and walked to the bus stop in the cool morning air. The bus ride to work took 20 minutes. Tom used this time to think about his day and sometimes to worry about money. Today was especially difficult because rent was due in 3 days, and he was still $50 short. He had asked his boss about extra shifts, but the diner was already struggling with business. Danny's Diner sat on a busy street corner, with large windows that let in plenty of light during the day. The red vinyl booths were cracked in places, and the floor tiles were worn, but everything was spotlessly clean. Tom took pride in his work, no matter how tired he felt. "Morning, Tom," called Danny from behind the counter. Danny was the owner, a man in his 60s who had run the diner for over 30 years. He was fair to his employees and understanding about Tom's situation with Lucy. "Morning, Danny," Tom replied, tying his apron around his waist. "Looks like it might rain today." "Radio says storm coming tonight," Danny agreed. "Might be slow because of that." Tom nodded, hoping it would not be too slow. Slow days meant fewer tips, and he needed every dollar he could get. He began setting up his section, filling salt shakers and making sure each table had clean napkins and silverware. The morning rush was steady but manageable. Tom served coffee to construction workers heading to job sites, breakfast to office workers, and hot chocolate to a mother with 2 young children. Each customer received the same friendly service, even when Tom felt exhausted. Around noon, Tom called Lucy's school to check on her. She was doing well in her classes, though her teacher mentioned she seemed quiet lately. Tom knew Lucy missed her mother terribly, especially at night when she would ask when Maria was coming home. Those conversations broke Tom's heart every time. The afternoon passed slowly. Rain began falling around 3 o'clock, starting as a light drizzle and gradually becoming heavier. By evening, it was pouring steadily, creating rivers of water in the street gutters. The diner's windows fogged up from the difference in temperature between inside and outside. Tom was wiping down tables when the elderly couple entered. They moved slowly, the man helping the woman navigate around puddles near the entrance. Both were soaked despite their umbrella, which appeared to be broken. Their clothes were neat but obviously old, and their shoes looked like they had been repaired several times. The woman had gray hair pulled back in a simple bun, and her eyes were bright blue despite her age. The man was tall and thin, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. They chose a booth in Tom's section, near the window where they could watch the rain. "Good evening," Tom said, approaching their table with menus. "Can I get you something warm to drink? Coffee or tea?" "Coffee would be wonderful," the man replied. His voice was gentle, and he spoke with a slight accent that Tom could not identify. "Thank you very much." Coming right up, Tom smiled, noticing how the woman shivered slightly in her damp coat. When Tom returned with coffee, he overheard the couple talking quietly. They were looking at the menu, but their conversation was about prices rather than food choices. "Maybe just soup, Henry," the woman whispered to her husband. "We can share it." Henry patted her hand gently. "It's our anniversary, Rose. 50 years deserves better than shared soup." Rose smiled at him with pure love. "50 years of happiness is worth more than any meal, my dear." Tom pretended not to hear as he filled their coffee cups. He had learned from experience that customers valued their privacy, especially when discussing personal matters. But something about the couple touched his heart. They reminded him of his own grandparents, who had passed away when he was young. The couple continued studying the menu for several minutes. Tom watched from behind the counter as they pointed to different items and whispered to each other. Finally, Henry reached into his pocket and pulled out a small cloth bag. He carefully counted the coins inside, his face growing more concerned with each count. Rose noticed her husband's expression and reached across the table to take his hand. "It's all right, Henry. We have enough for coffee and maybe some bread." "But it's our anniversary," Henry repeated, his voice filled with sadness. "I promised you dinner out tonight." Tom felt his chest tighten as he watched the scene. These people had been married for 50 years, and they were celebrating with coins counted carefully for coffee and bread. He thought about his own financial struggles, but at least he and Lucy had a roof over their heads and food in their refrigerator. The diner was nearly empty due to the storm. Only one other table was occupied, by a regular customer who came in every evening for pie and coffee. The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of Danny washing dishes in the back. Tom approached the elderly couple's table again, order pad ready. "Have you decided what you would like this evening?" Henry looked at his wife, then at Tom. "We would like the vegetable soup, please. 1 bowl. And maybe some crackers if you have them." "1 soup to share," Tom wrote on his pad, his heart breaking for them. "Anything else?" "We have fresh pie tonight." Rose's eyes brightened for a moment, then dimmed. "The soup will be plenty, thank you." Tom walked to the kitchen, his mind racing. He thought about Lucy at home, probably doing homework at their small kitchen table. He thought about the $50 he still needed for rent. He thought about his own empty stomach, since he rarely ate during his shifts to save money. But mostly, he thought about the love he had seen between Henry and Rose, and how they were trying to celebrate 50 years of marriage with shared soup on a rainy night. Danny was cleaning the grill when Tom approached. "Hey Danny, what would a full dinner cost for 2 people? Maybe the meatloaf special with pie?" Danny looked up, surprised. 2 meatloaf dinners and pie. About $28 with coffee. Why? $28 was more than Tom made in tips on a slow day. It was money he needed desperately. But as he looked back at the elderly couple, still holding hands across their table, he knew what he had to do. Tom walked back to their table, his decision made. "Excuse me, folks. I have some good news. Tonight is our senior anniversary special. The manager wants to offer you a complete dinner on the house to celebrate your 50 years together." Henry and Rose looked at each other in surprise and confusion. "A special?" Rose asked. "We didn't know about any special." Tom smiled warmly. "It's a new program we just started. 50 years of marriage is something worth celebrating. How about our meatloaf dinner with vegetables, and some of our famous apple pie? Danny makes it fresh every day." Henry's eyes filled with tears. "That is very kind, but we couldn't possibly accept such generosity." "Please," Tom said gently. "It would make everyone here happy to help you celebrate. 50 years together is an inspiration to all of us." Rose squeezed her husband's hand and looked up at Tom. "You are an angel," she whispered. This is the kindness that gives me faith in the world. Tom went to the kitchen and explained the situation to Danny, who immediately understood and supported Tom's decision. They prepared the best meal they could, with extra vegetables and generous portions of pie. As Henry and Rose ate their dinner, their faces glowed with happiness. They talked about their wedding day, their children, and the life they had built together. Tom refilled their coffee several times, each visit bringing him more joy than any tip he had ever received. When they finished eating, Rose took Tom's hand in both of hers. "Young man, you have given us a gift tonight that we will never forget. Kindness like yours deserves to come back to you tenfold." Henry stood and shook Tom's hand firmly. "Thank you for making our anniversary special. You remind me that there are still good people in this world." After they left, Tom paid for their meal from his own tip money. It left him with only a few dollars for the evening, and rent would have to wait another day. But as he watched Henry and Rose walk slowly into the rain, sharing their broken umbrella and smiling at each other, he felt richer than he had in years. Tom finished his shift and caught the late bus home. Lucy was asleep when he arrived, her homework completed and left on the kitchen table for him to check. He looked at their meager dinner leftovers in the refrigerator and felt grateful for what they had. Before going to sleep on the couch, Tom checked on Lucy. She was sleeping peacefully, her dark hair spread across her pillow like her mother's used to be. He whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude for his daughter and for the chance to help someone else feel joy, even for one evening. Outside, the rain continued falling, but inside their small apartment, Tom felt a warmth that no amount of money could buy. Tom woke up earlier than usual the next morning. The rain had stopped sometime during the night, and sunlight was streaming through the thin curtains of their small apartment. He felt different somehow, though he could not explain why. There was a strange sense of anticipation in the air, like something important was about to happen. Lucy was still sleeping when Tom got up from the couch. He moved quietly to the kitchen and started making coffee, using the small amount of grounds he had been saving for the weekend. Money was tighter than ever after paying for Henry and Rose's dinner, but Tom felt no regret about his decision. In fact, every time he thought about the joy on their faces, he smiled. The coffee maker gurgled softly as Tom looked out their small kitchen window. The street below was still wet from the storm, but the sun was creating small rainbows in the puddles. Children were already playing outside, their voices carrying up to the second floor where Tom and Lucy lived. Tom had the day off from the diner, which was rare. Danny had given him Sunday off because business was always slow after storms. Tom planned to spend the day with Lucy, maybe take her to the park if it stayed sunny. They had not had quality time together in weeks because of his work schedule. Lucy appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas and rubbing her sleepy eyes. Her dark hair was messy from sleep, and she looked so much like her mother that Tom's heart ached with both love and sadness. "Morning, Daddy," Lucy said, climbing onto one of their two mismatched kitchen chairs. "You're home today?" All day, Tom smiled, pouring himself coffee and getting Lucy a glass of orange juice. "What would you like to do?" "It's a beautiful day outside." Lucy's face lit up. "Can we go to the park? And maybe feed the ducks? I saved some bread from yesterday." "That sounds perfect," Tom said, sitting across from her at their small table. "But first, let's have some breakfast. How about pancakes?" "Really?" Lucy's eyes grew wide with excitement. Pancakes were a special treat they rarely had because syrup was expensive. "With syrup?" "With syrup," Tom confirmed, though he mentally calculated how much money he had left. It would be worth it to see Lucy happy. Tom was mixing pancake batter when loud knocking interrupted the peaceful morning. The sound was urgent and persistent, not like their elderly neighbor Mrs. Johnson who sometimes needed help with groceries. Tom glanced at the clock on their microwave. It was only 8:30 in the morning, too early for most visitors. "Stay here, sweetheart," Tom told Lucy, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "I'll see who it is." The knocking continued as Tom walked to their front door. He looked through the small peephole and saw two men standing in the hallway. One was young, well-dressed in an expensive-looking suit and tie. The other man looked familiar, though Tom could not immediately place him. Tom opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock attached. "Can I help you?" "Are you Tom?" asked the younger man. His voice was confident but kind. "Tom who works at Danny's diner?" "Yes," Tom replied, confusion growing. "Who are you?" The older man stepped forward, and suddenly Tom recognized him. It was Henry, the elderly man from the restaurant last night. But Henry looked different now, sadder somehow, and he was wearing a black suit. "Hello again, young man," Henry said softly. "This is my grandson, David Chen. We need to speak with you about something very important." Tom's mind raced with questions, but he could see the seriousness in both men's faces. He removed the chain lock and opened the door fully. "Please, come in. Though I should warn you, our apartment is very small." David Chen entered first, and Tom immediately noticed the quality of his clothes. His suit was perfectly tailored, his shoes were polished leather, and his watch looked expensive. Everything about him suggested wealth and success. Behind him, Henry moved slowly, his face showing deep sadness that had not been there the night before. "Daddy, who is it?" Lucy called from the kitchen. "Just some visitors, sweetheart," Tom replied. "Keep mixing the pancake batter for me." Tom gestured for the men to sit on their old couch, the same couch where he slept every night. David looked around the small apartment, taking in the bare walls, the mismatched furniture, and the obvious signs of financial struggle. But his expression showed no judgment, only observation. Henry sat down heavily, as if the weight of the world was on his shoulders. David sat beside his grandfather, placing a comforting hand on the older man's arm. "I'm sorry to disturb you so early," David began, "but my grandfather insisted we come here immediately. Something happened last night after you saw them at the diner." Tom felt his stomach tighten with worry. "Is Rose all right? She seemed tired last night." Henry's eyes filled with tears, and he struggled to speak. David answered for him. "I'm sorry to tell you that my grandmother passed away peacefully in her sleep early this morning." Tom felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. The sweet, kind woman who had held his hand and thanked him for his kindness was gone. He thought about how happy she had looked during dinner, how she had smiled at Henry with such pure love. "I'm so sorry," Tom said, his voice barely above a whisper. "She seemed so happy last night." They both did. She was happy, Henry spoke for the first time since entering the apartment. Happier than she had been in months. "You see, Tom, Rose had been sick for a long time. The doctors said she didn't have much time left, but she kept it from me because she didn't want me to worry." David continued the story. "My grandfather called me at 6 this morning, not to tell me about my grandmother's death, but to tell me about you. About what you did for them last night." Tom shook his head. "I didn't do anything special. It was just dinner." "It was their 50th wedding anniversary," Henry said, his voice growing stronger. "I had promised Rose a special celebration, but our pension check was late this month. We could barely afford coffee, let alone a proper dinner. When you gave us that meal, you gave us something precious." "My grandmother wrote something before she died," David said, pulling an envelope from his jacket pocket. "She woke up around 5 this morning and insisted on writing a letter. She made my grandfather promise to find you and give this to you." Tom stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. His name was written on the front in shaky handwriting that must have taken great effort to produce. "But there's more," David continued. "My grandfather told me everything about last night. How you paid for their dinner from your own pocket. How you made up a story about an anniversary special so they wouldn't feel like they were accepting charity." Tom felt embarrassed. "How did you know I paid for it?" Henry smiled through his tears. "I went back to the diner this morning to thank the manager for the special. Danny told me the truth. He said you paid $28 from your own tip money, money you needed for rent. I called Danny myself, David added. He told me about your situation. About your wife's death, about how hard you work to take care of your daughter. About how you never complain and always help others when you can. Tom felt uncomfortable with all the attention. I just did what anyone would do. No, David said firmly. You did what a truly good person does. And my grandfather spent all night telling me about you, about how you embody everything my grandparents believed in. You see, Tom, my grandparents raised me after my parents died when I was young. They taught me about kindness, about helping others, about the importance of family. David looked around the apartment again, then back at Tom. I've been very successful in business. I started a technology company 5 years ago, and we've done well. Very well. But I've been looking for meaningful ways to honor my grandparents' memory, ways to continue their legacy of kindness. Tom was beginning to understand where this conversation was heading, but it seemed impossible. My grandmother's final wish was that we help you, David continued. She believed that people who show genuine kindness to others deserve kindness in return. She made my grandfather promise that we would find a way to change your life, the way you changed their final evening together. Henry reached into his jacket and pulled out another envelope, much thicker than the first one. Rose wanted you to have this. She said it was payment for giving her the most beautiful final memory she could have asked for. Tom's hands shook as he took both envelopes. I can't accept money from you. What I did was just human decency. Which is exactly why you deserve this, David said. Tom, people like you are rare. In my business, I meet hundreds of people every week. Most of them are looking for what they can get from others. You gave something precious to total strangers when you could barely afford to give it. Lucy appeared in the kitchen doorway, drawn by the serious conversation. She looked curiously at the two well-dressed visitors in their small living room. Daddy, are the pancakes ready? She asked innocently. Tom looked at his daughter, then at the two envelopes in his hands. Whatever was inside them could change their lives, but he was almost afraid to look. Lucy, come here, sweetheart, Tom said gently. I want you to meet some friends. Lucy walked over and stood beside Tom's chair. David smiled at her kindly. You must be Lucy, David said. Your father is a very special man. Did you know that? Lucy nodded seriously. He takes care of me. He works very hard. Yes, he does, David agreed. And now some very special people want to take care of him for a change. Henry spoke to Lucy directly. My wife and I met your father last night. He was so kind to us, and she wanted to do something kind for him in return. Tom looked down at the envelope with his name on it, written in Rose's careful handwriting. With trembling fingers, he opened it and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The letter was short but written with obvious effort. Dear Tom. Thank you for giving an old woman and her husband the most beautiful final evening together. Your kindness reminded me that there are still angels walking among us. Please use this gift to build a better life for you and your precious daughter. The world needs more people like you. With all my love and gratitude. Rose. Tom's eyes filled with tears as he read the letter aloud. Lucy listened carefully, not fully understanding but sensing the importance of the moment. Then Tom opened the second envelope and nearly dropped it in shock. Inside was a check for $50,000. This is impossible, Tom whispered. I can't accept this. You can and you will, David said firmly but kindly. But that's not all. Tom, I want to offer you a job. Tom stared at the check in his hands, reading the numbers over and over again. $50,000. It was more money than he had ever seen in his life. More than he made in 3 years at the diner. His mind could barely process what was happening. I don't understand, Tom said, looking up at David. You mentioned a job. David smiled, but his eyes showed the same kindness that Tom had seen in his grandparents the night before. "My company has been growing rapidly, and we've been looking to start a community outreach program. We want to help families and elderly people in need, provide job training, and support local businesses like Danny's Diner." Lucy moved closer to her father, sensing something important was happening even though she didn't understand all the words. Tom put his arm around her, still holding the check and Rose's letter. "I need someone to run this program," David continued. "Someone who understands what it means to struggle, someone who has real compassion for others. After what my grandfather told me about you, I can't think of anyone better." Tom felt overwhelmed. "But I don't have experience in that kind of work. I'm just a server at a diner." Henry spoke up, his voice stronger now. "Tom, you showed more real experience in one evening than most people show in a lifetime. You understood exactly what Rose and I needed, and you gave it to us without expecting anything in return." "The salary would be $60,000 a year to start," David said. "Plus benefits, including health insurance for you and Lucy. The job would involve working with community centers, helping families find resources, and coordinating with local businesses to create opportunities for people in need." Tom's head was spinning. $60,000 a year was more than he had ever imagined making. With health insurance, he wouldn't have to worry about what would happen if Lucy got sick. They could move to a better apartment, maybe even a small house. "This is too much," Tom said. "I can't possibly accept all of this." "You can't refuse," Henry said firmly but kindly. "Rose made me promise that we would do this. She said that goodness should be rewarded, and that people like you should be given the chance to help even more people." Lucy tugged on Tom's shirt. "Daddy, what does this mean?" Tom looked down at his daughter, then back at the two men who had appeared at their door like something from a dream. "It means we're going to be okay, sweetheart. More than okay." David reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I've taken the liberty of preparing some paperwork. If you accept the position, you could start next month. That would give you time to find a new place to live and get Lucy settled." Tom opened the folder and saw official documents with the company letterhead. Everything looked real and professional. This wasn't a dream or a mistake. These people were serious about changing his life. "Why are you doing this?" Tom asked. "Really?" Henry leaned forward in his chair. "Because 50 years ago, Rose and I were young and struggling, just like you are now. A stranger helped us when we needed it most, and we promised each other that if we were ever able to help someone else the same way, we would. My grandparents spent their entire lives helping others," David added. "They never had much money, but they always found ways to support their neighbors and community. When I became successful, they made me promise to use my success to continue that tradition." Tom looked at Rose's letter again. Her words were simple but powerful. She had seen something in him that he didn't even see in himself. "Can I think about this?" Tom asked. "Of course," David replied. "But don't think too long. I meant what I said about starting next month. And Tom, there's one more thing." David pulled out another set of papers. "The company has a fund for employee housing assistance. If you accept the job, we can help you with a down payment on a house. Nothing fancy, but something stable for you and Lucy. A house." Tom had given up dreaming about owning a home years ago. After Maria died, just keeping a roof over their heads had been challenge enough. Lucy was looking back and forth between the adults, trying to understand. "Daddy, are we going to move?" "Maybe, sweetheart," Tom said softly. "Would you like that? A bigger place to live?" Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "With my own room? And maybe a yard?" "Maybe," Tom smiled, feeling tears in his eyes. Henry stood up slowly. "We should let you discuss this as a family. But Tom, please remember that Rose's final hours were filled with joy because of your kindness. Let us honor her memory by accepting hers." After Henry and David left, Tom and Lucy sat at their kitchen table eating the pancakes that had been forgotten during the emotional morning. Tom kept reading Rose's letter and looking at the check, making sure they were real. "Daddy, what's happening?" Lucy asked between bites. Tom put down the letter and took his daughter's small hand in his. "Do you remember how Mommy always told us that good things happen to good people?" Lucy nodded. "Well, I helped some people last night, and now they want to help us. Like when you helped Mrs. Johnson with her groceries, and she made us cookies." "Something like that," Tom smiled. "But much bigger." That afternoon, Tom called Danny to explain what had happened. Danny was amazed by the story but not surprised that Tom had been chosen for such good fortune. "You deserve this, Tom," Danny said over the phone. "You've been nothing but good to everyone you meet. I'm going to miss you at the diner, but I'm happy for you and Lucy." Tom assured Danny that he would work his remaining shifts and help train his replacement. He also promised to bring Lucy by the diner regularly to visit. Over the next few days, Tom's life moved faster than it ever had before. David's company provided a lawyer to help with the paperwork, and within a week, Tom had signed his employment contract. The reality of his new situation was starting to sink in. Tom and Lucy went house hunting with a real estate agent that David's company recommended. They looked at several small houses in safe neighborhoods with good schools. Lucy fell in love with a blue house with a small front yard and a big tree perfect for climbing. "This one, Daddy," Lucy said, running around the empty living room. "I want this one." The house was small but clean and bright, with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen big enough for a real dining table. The backyard was tiny but had space for a garden. Tom could picture Lucy playing outside safely while he watched from the kitchen window. With the company's housing assistance and Rose's gift, Tom was able to make the down payment. For the first time in years, he had money in a savings account for emergencies. Tom's first day at Chin Technologies was both exciting and terrifying. The office building was modern and impressive, with glass walls and contemporary furniture. Everyone he met was friendly and welcoming, and David introduced him to his new team. "Tom's job is to help us connect with the community," David announced to the staff. "He has real experience understanding what people need, and he's going to help us make a genuine difference in people's lives." Tom's first project was to visit local community centers and assess their needs. He spent days talking to families, elderly people, and community leaders. It reminded him of his own struggles, but now he was in a position to actually help solve problems. One of his first successes was securing funding for Danny's Diner to expand their senior discount program. Tom convinced David's company to sponsor free meals for elderly customers who couldn't afford to eat out. Danny was thrilled with the partnership. 3 months into his new job, Tom and Lucy were settled into their blue house. Lucy had her own bedroom, decorated with new furniture and her drawings on the walls. She had made friends in their new neighborhood and was doing well in her new school. On a Saturday morning, Tom and Lucy were working in their small garden when Lucy asked a question that had been on her mind. "Daddy, can we help people like that nice lady helped us?" Tom looked at his daughter, who was carefully watering the flowers they had planted together. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" "Mrs. Rose helped us when we needed help. Can we help other people who need help?" Tom felt his heart swell with pride. Despite everything they had been through, Lucy had learned the same lesson about kindness that had led to their good fortune. "That's a wonderful idea, Lucy. What did you have in mind?" Lucy thought for a moment. "Maybe we could make dinner for people who don't have enough food. Like you did for Mrs. Rose and Mr. Henry." That afternoon, Tom called several local community centers to ask about organizing regular community dinners for families in need. Within 2 weeks, they had established a program where Tom and Lucy, along with volunteers from David's company, provided free meals every Sunday evening. The first community dinner was held at the same community center where Tom had once brought Lucy when they couldn't afford groceries. Now, they were serving meals to families who were facing the same struggles they had overcome. Lucy helped serve food and talk to the children who came with their parents. Tom watched her with amazement, seeing how naturally she connected with others and how genuinely she cared about helping them feel welcome. 6 months after that life-changing morning when Henry and David had knocked on their door, Tom and Lucy stood in the cemetery where Rose was buried. They brought fresh flowers every month, a tradition Tom had started to honor her memory. Lucy placed the flowers gently on Rose's grave while Tom read the inscription on the headstone. Beloved wife, mother, and grandmother. She saw the good in everyone. Tell her about our dinner program, Daddy, Lucy said softly. Tom smiled and spoke to the headstone as if Rose could hear him. We're helping people now, Rose. Every week, we feed families who need a good meal and some kindness. Lucy is learning everything you would have wanted her to learn about caring for others. As they walked back to their car, Lucy took Tom's hand. Do you think Mrs. Rose knows about all the good things that happened? Tom squeezed his daughter's hand. I think she does, sweetheart. I think she's very happy that we're passing on the kindness she gave us. That evening, Tom and Lucy sat at their dining table in their own house, eating dinner and planning the menu for the next community meal. On the wall beside them hung Rose's letter in a simple frame, a daily reminder of how one act of kindness had transformed their entire world. Tom looked at his daughter, who was excitedly describing her ideas for helping more families, and felt grateful beyond words. They had learned the most important lesson of all, that kindness shared returns multiplied, creating circles of hope that extend far beyond what anyone can imagine.